Hey everybody, Ed Homewood. I hope everyone's doing well today. Welcome back to the channel. Well, you'll never guess what we're going to talk about. The Magnepan 1.7x speakers. So please sit back, relax, and we'll get going with this review. So what are the Magnepan 1.7x? Well, it's a $5,000 pair of speakers. It is an upgrade over the standard 1.7i. It has that new X crossover. You know what I'll do? Let me put up a slide with specifications on it, accompanied by some lovely incidental music. Well, you know, for me, I think the 1.7x may be the sweet spot in the Magnepan lineup. It delivers the openness, mid-range realism, coherence, and expansive soundstage that makes Magnepans so distinctive. Now, it remains much more manageable than the larger 2.7x in terms of price, room requirements, and amplifier demands. It's the upgraded X-Series crossover that brings greater articulation, focus, and refinement over the standard 1.7i model. Add the Magna Riser stands, more on those in a minute. Give the speakers enough room, pair them with a capable high current amplifier, and the 1.7x becomes an exceptionally involving loudspeaker. Now, what is it and who's it for? You know, the 1.7x is a three-way, full-range, quasi-ribbon, planar magnetic speaker. Rather than using a conventional cone driver mounted in a cabinet, there is no cabinet, Magnepan employs extremely light mylar diaphragms driven across a large surface area. This low-mass, low-excursion approach minimizes cabinet coloration, and it contributes to the open, spacious presentation for which Magnepan is so famous for. Now, the 1.7x is for listeners who prioritize tonal naturalness, mid-range realism, musical coherence, image size, and an immersive soundstage. You know, it's less suited to someone looking for maximum low bass impact, conventional kind of speaker punch, or a speaker that can simply be placed against the wall. Now, the build quality of this unit is remarkable. I will show you, I'm going to insert slides that show all of the different configurations on the back as far as the connections and the resistors I use. So, you know what, why don't we do that right now? Well, these are the optional Magnepan stands. They're normally available in black, but these were painted gold to match the speakers for the Exponus show. They sell for $350, and they're worth considering over the stock stands. Now, the Ascendant NXTs from Magna Riser made a big difference in sound. Everything focused better. It was just remarkable how much an improvement there was. Now, this is the connection panel on the back of the 1.7x, and you can see I've got the jumper out of the tweeter attenuator. I use a 1.5 ohm resistor mounted to a dual banana plug just to bring that tweeter level down a little bit. And I like using the dual banana plugs because it makes it really easy to swap if I need to. Now, if you look through the speaker cloth, you can see the upgraded X crossover network. Really, really nice. Well, the 1.7x does not try to impress with exotic cabinetry or luxury finishes. Although this is finished in this really nice gold side panels and black speaker cloth, the design is simple and purposeful, with the investment clearly going into the panels themselves and the upgraded crossover rather than any kind of fancy decorative flourishes. Its slim profile makes it visually less imposing than its 65-inch height might suggest, although it does remain a physically large speaker. Because it is a dipole design, it also needs adequate space behind it to perform properly. You know, one upgrade I strongly recommend is the Magna Riser stands. In my room, they made a meaningful improvement. The speakers felt more stable, the imaging snapped into sharper focus, and the entire presentation became more precise. I consider them one of the most worthwhile upgrades available for the 1.7x. Well, rather than bore you with the litany of equipment that I used for the review, I'll put up a slide showing all the equipment used during this review, but several combinations deserve special mention. Well, now that you've seen the slide with all the different equipment, let me tell you about some pairings that worked exceptionally well. You know, the Advanced Paris A12, and it continues to surprise me, drove the Magnepans very well. Its high current design produced a smooth, detailed presentation with excellent low-end control, good rhythmic energy, and a very good, very large soundstage and solid image. Now, the brand new Cambridge Evo 300 handled the 1.7x with authority and excellent pace. This was a particularly strong combination. Well, the Heaven 11 Billy was a pleasant surprise. Despite its compact size, it worked beautifully with the Magnepans, and it produced a spacious, satisfying presentation. It was kind of funny, tiny amplifier, huge speakers, but it was a very enjoyable pairing. Now, the complete Burson Voyager system, consisting of the Conductor Voyager preamp headphone amp, the pair of Timekeeper Voyager Class A mono blocks, and the Fusion Core GAN-amp power supplies, that had power to spare. You know, it delivered tremendous control, although it also added some extra energy around the 1 to 2 kilohertz region that sort of became mildly fatiguing during longer listening sessions. Well, the Junsung JA99C was another standout. It sounded wonderful with the 1.7x, delivering satisfying bass, clean highs, and a very large and convincing soundstage. Another standout was the Pearl Acoustics 7040, which of course is a Class D amplifier that uses the Purify 7040 mono modules, and it has 2 modes in it, one called Detail and one called Relaxed, or commonly referred to as Old Guy Hi-Fi mode. The 7040 offered excellent grip and control, although it could sound ever so slightly lean when pushed, and it depended a lot with the preamplifier. Now, the Black Ice F360 paired especially well with the Pearl, while the Wilsonton preamplifier was outstanding with the Junsung amplifier. Well, let's talk a little bit about the features and why they're important. So, the big one is the upgraded X Series crossover, and the benefit of that is greater refinement, tighter channel matching, smoother response, and much improved driver integration. The 1.7x uses a substantially upgraded crossover rather than simply substituting a few premium parts. Magnepan employs closely matched copper-rich polypropylene capacitor banks, high-gauge air-core copper inductors, and carefully selected resistor arrays where required. Now, you saw on the back, I do use a resistor to bring the tweeter level down a little bit, and it's supplied in the case. You get a couple of resistors to test that with. Now, each of the components in the crossover are individually measured, sorted, and retested after installation, so the left and right crossover networks remain very closely matched. You know, small value adjustments are also made where appropriate to simplify the circuit, smooth the response, and reduce voltage loss. Now, the internal wiring in the X-Series crossover uses short runs of heavy gauge solid copper with excess wire removed and the component layout optimized to reduce resistance and wire mass. Connections throughout the crossover are silver soldered rather than relying on traditional push-on mechanical joints. The result is not a fundamentally different Magnepan sound, but a cleaner, much more refined version of it with improved integration, improved focus, excellent image stability, and great overall coherence. Well, another great feature is the 3-way full-range quasi-ribbon design, and the benefit of this is exceptional clarity with very low coloration. The large radiating surface requires very little physical excursion, helping reduce distortion and preserve the characteristic Magnepan openness. And voices and acoustic instruments sound especially natural and believable. Well, another important feature to discuss is the dipole radiation pattern. And the benefit of this is a very spacious and immersive soundstage. The 1.7x radiates from both the front and rear of the panel, so proper placement away from the front wall, the wall behind the speakers, is therefore very important. But when positioned correctly, the speakers virtually disappear into the room. Well, let's talk a little bit about the sound character and my listening impressions of these speakers. You know, the 1.7x delivers everything you expect from a Magnepan through the mid-range, but with a greater sense of cleanliness and much more refinement. It sounds open, natural, and exceptionally low in coloration. Vocals have the proper scale and texture, instruments carry convincing harmonic weight, and there is very little sense of a crossover handoff. The presentation feels coherent and continuous throughout the most important part of the musical spectrum. So perhaps The most impressive quality of the 1.7x is its sense of musical flow. Transients are clean, the timing is precise, and complex arrangements remain organized rather than kind of collapsing into congestion. You know, you have the ability to pick out an instrument and follow it throughout whatever the passage happens to be. The speaker has a wonderful ability to present the relationship between instruments and voices and the acoustic space around them. The result is a presentation that feels effortless. It's very involving. And you know what? For me, it's emotionally convincing. My final thoughts. You know, the 1.7x reminds you why the company has maintained such a loyal following. You know, the upgraded crossover brings greater refinement and organization to that house sound that Magnepan is well known for. And it just gives everything a more convincing body texture, you know, never sounding fatiguing or aggressive. Well, for me, the 1.7x occupies the sweet spot in the Magnepan lineup. It offers much of the openness, realism, scale, and musical involvement of the larger models with a much more manageable room requirement. You don't need as huge an amplifier, and obviously it's less costly. I like them very much. They're articulate, refined, and capable of creating an experience few conventional speakers can match at this price. Well, before we wrap up, a special thank you to Ken and Mick at Magnepan for letting me bring these home from Expona. Thanks guys very much, I do appreciate it. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you'd consider giving me a like and your subscription. I would appreciate that. You know, you might want to ring the bell to get notified the next time I put out a video. I would like to give a special thanks to my current channel members and subscribers. Thank you all so much for your support. There will be a link to Tidal Cobuzz and Spotify playlists for premium speaker test tracks. There's some affiliate links in the description. You know about that. Comment, let me know your thoughts on this. I think I've covered all the bases on the Magnepan 1.7x. Indeed, I have. Anyway, please like, please subscribe, comment always. You may follow me on Instagram if you wish to. My name is Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel, and please find some time today to put on the music you love and just sit back and relax. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really hope you have a great day.